You hear a joke at a party and you retell it at every party you attend for the next 2 months. You also have a parrot who hears you say the joke and starts repeating it in front of your guests for a treat. Now, at first glance, you both seem to be fundamentally doing the same thing, the repetition of an observed behavior for a known reward. Let's look at another case. A child sees her elders waving their hands, and eventually she learns how to wave at people herself. Similarly, a baby ape can also observe his mother cracking open nuts with rocks every day and eventually pick up that skill himself. Again, on the surface, both these scenarios seem like they involve the imitation or mimicry of a gesture, but in reality, both the purpose and the mechanism of the human acts are entirely different from the animal acts. And the explanation behind this answer provides a profound perspective on the entire history of human culture. This is the story of memes, not just the slop that you see on the internet. Those are a very small and relatively powerless subset of memes. Memes exist everywhere around us. The word was coined by biologist Richard Dawkins in his 1976 bestseller, The Selfish Gene, and has been studied extensively after that. Put simply, a meme is an idea that replicates itself. It can be a scientific hypothesis, a conspiracy theory, political opinions, art forms, social gestures, and even skills. As long as we're talking about an information artifact which replicates from one brain to another, it's a meme. The study of memes has seen a roller coaster of interest in academic circles, and it is only now that it's coming into the consciousness of the general public. Now, all of us already know from intuition and observation that ideas can spread, and some ideas spread more than others. So, why did we have to invent a new concept for this? This question comes to a head because our intuitive understanding of idea replication is grossly incorrect. The replication of human ideas is a miraculous process, which is why it leads to incredible consequences, both good and bad. To explain the nature and significance of memes in this video, I shall borrow heavily from the extraordinary writings of the physicist David Deutsch. Okay, so imagine that you open Twitter or X and see something like this. Many of you have seen this phrase before, so just think back to the first time you saw it. You probably had no problems understanding what it means, even if you never heard the word raw dog being used for anything remotely similar to this. Even if you're a non native English speaker who has only ever encountered the word a handful of times on some specific websites, you still do not have any problems understanding what this meme means. This is the first part of meme replication where the human acquires a meme. And we already have a little something to admire about the human brain here. Our brains are able to fill in the gaps of information with little to no precedent of the said information, something we take for granted in our daily lives. Regardless, to our point, there is no imitation involved till now. So, on to the next part. Say that you go to a friend's house to watch a match and you lose your specs. So you try finding it for a long time in vain, and as the match is about to start, you sink into the couch and declare, guess I'll just raw dog the screen tonight. The words are different, the concepts are different, the subject, the situation, everything's different. And still, it is the same meme and it still works. Notice how you have successfully replicated the meme without imitating anything. Now imagine that one of your friends here goes to work the next day and he has to take an important call but realizes that he forgot his earphones back at home. As his laptop is ringing, he asks around for an earphone from his colleagues, and no one seems to have a spare one at the moment. So he resigns to his chair and says out loud, forget the earphones, man, I'll just raw dog it today, and takes the call in loudspeaker. Again, it's the same meme. It is different from its predecessors, but Anyone around who has previously heard the prior versions of it will instantly recognize it. You have now seen this meme getting acquired and transmitted twice over without a single act of mimicry or imitation. This is the reason why, whenever a joke spreads, it never retains its original form. In each successive retelling, the joke stands the chance to evolve. In fact, there are many jokes that did not even start off as jokes. Every dark joke, for example, has its origin in a person's reaction to something tragic or disturbing. But let's deepen our understanding a little further. We look at a more widely recognized mimetic phenomenon. You may have heard before how every great story is a variation of the primordial hero's journey. This was first detailed by Joseph Campbell in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. This is a widely studied mimetic phenomenon, and while many modern authors often use the hero's journey as a guiding framework for storytelling, do you think that every best selling author in history was explicitly aware of the hero's journey and used its tropes as a checklist to mechanically construct stories? No. The hero's journey is a meme, or rather a memeplex, which is a set of memes that replicate together. You do not need to memorize these memes by heart to create a good story. If you have heard any ancient myth as a child from any part of the world, you have already acquired the hero's journey memeplex, and whenever you enter flow state while writing your own novel, the memes will automatically express themselves in your draft. Once again, a meme replication has occurred without a single act of mimicry. In fact, in this case, you, the medium, was unaware of the transmission. And it's going to happen again when your book is read by someone who, say, happens to be a creative marketer. And the next time they create an ad, they'll unconsciously script the narrative matching the pattern of the hero's journey. The vast majority of information in a meme is inexplicit. Its nature is only explicitly understood when someone studies the meme and its variations in retrospect. When you teach your child how to wave a hand, you don't teach her all the different variations of waving and when to use them. Whether you're waving to say goodbye, or to catch someone's attention, or to signal that you're thankful for something, or to simply acknowledge someone's presence in the room, no one explicitly teaches you when to do any of that, and yet, the first time you see a certain type of hand wave, you understand its underlying meaning and hence acquire it. How exactly is the human brain capable of replicating memes like this? That is a different story out of the scope of this discussion, but what's relevant to our topic is that while on the surface humans seem to be imitating each other like birds and apes, in reality, it is impossible for imitation to be the basis of meme replication. In fact, imitation is rather inessential to the process. That is further proven by the fact that people with sensory impairments are also able to replicate memes involving the senses pretty well. That's how strong our brains are when it comes to filling information gaps. But even that pales in comparison to how physicists can predict the behavior of celestial bodies. Scientific hypotheses are ideas as well, which is the reason why the popularity of a hypothesis has nothing to do with its correctness. The hypothesis with the greater mimetic potential infects the masses who lack critical thinking, regardless of its proximity to the truth. Now, coming back down to the parrot repeating what you're saying, that is just imitation. This doesn't mean that it's not a complex process or that the parrot lacks intelligence. There might be if else statements programmed into the parrot's genes which tell it which sounds to imitate and when to imitate. But it is fundamentally something different from human meme replication. The parrot neither understands nor transmits the inexplicit meaning behind the sounds that it imitates. The lyrebird in Australia is one of the many birds that have evolved to possess the ability of parroting. It can parrot very complex sounds like car alarms, camera shutters, and toy guns. But in the same spirit, it also mimics the sound of the very instrument that is used to destroy its home. For the bird, the repetition of the sound has nothing to do with the connotation of the sound. If the parrot heard you say the raw dog joke, it might be able to repeat it word for word in front of your friend. But it's not replicating the meme by doing so. It's simply transmitting the sound of it, something the air molecules in the room can do just as well. But what about the ape learning how to crack nuts? The movements required to crack the nut are certainly more complex. The ape has to aim the rock at the nut. It may have to chase the nut and fetch it back if it rolls away. It has to keep hitting it until it cracks rather than always hitting it a fixed number of times. The complexity and intelligence at play here are much larger than the parrot. So, is the ape replicating memes just like a human? No. Apes and parrots have genetic knowledge of cracking open nuts and mimicking sounds. The meaning of the act is encoded into their genes because millions of years of natural selection has killed off any ape that doesn't have the genetic predisposition for cracking nuts, or any parrot that can't mimic sounds. It is for this reason that these two animals can't copy each other. The ape does not have the genetic knowledge to mimic sounds with the same mastery as the parrot, and the parrot doesn't have the genetic knowledge to use rocks with the same dexterity as that of an ape. But a human can do both of these acts. In fact, a human can do all of the acts that any animal can do. We can certainly use rocks as tools, and some of us can train our voices to be able to parrot. But we don't need to depend on our bodies to get things done. We can melt sand and make silicon chips out of it, which can power computers and then digitally mimic sounds way better than a parrot or a lyrebird. We can study how whales swim and build submarines to cruise below the ocean surface. We can understand the mechanics of a bird's wings and build airplanes and fly like them. We can do all of this because it's not only animals whose mechanisms we can learn, but also the mechanisms of the forces of nature and use it to our own advantage. Because of our ability and propensity to fill information gaps, a human is capable of understanding the meaning of everything, which gives us the power to do anything. And this is possible because the basis of human knowledge is mimetic and not genetic. When our children learn how to weave, they do not seek to copy the motion of the wave. Unlike the ape child learning how to crack a nut, the genes of the human child do not already know the meaning of the waving motion any more than they know the meaning of the second law of thermodynamics, which is to say, they don't know it at all. In fact, it is precisely the meaning of the wave motion that the man cub is trying to learn through observation here. Humans do not observe to repeat. We observe to understand why. As such, humans don't really copy anything. If all we did was copy our elders like the little ape, we would never have gained new knowledge, made scientific breakthrough, or created art. In all of human history, we have never needed the ability to copy each other to make progress in anything. Homo sapiens in different parts of the world have different ways of greeting people. Shaking hands, namaskar, the adab, or pulling the perfect tap. None of this is a result of natural selection. That we can simply raise our eyebrows to greet someone or raise one eyebrow to make someone nervously explain their actions. The meaning of these acts is not encoded into our genes. These are all memes, ideas that replicate and create a culture. And we learn their meaning by use of conjecture, criticism, simulation, and experiment, much of which happens spontaneously inside our heads. When we observe phenomena, our brains get set into action to create explanations of why that phenomenon occurred. And it is by this act of creating explanations that we understand and transmit the meaning of the phenomenon, be it a scientific hypothesis, a joke, or a social gesture. Our explanations can be good or bad, but right now we are not concerned with that. Our ancestors had a very different explanation of lightning than we do. Some of the uncontacted primitive tribes today probably still have such explanations for natural phenomena, but the fact that we are an explanatory species makes it possible for memes to exist in human society. Whether the meme is a concept of the lightning god or rickrolling, or the waving of hands, or classical music. We shall continue this discussion in a later video where we discuss some incredibly interesting and some extremely cruel implications of being an explanatory species and our interactions with these memes, which almost seem to have a will of their own. Thanks for listening. I'd like to read your theories and opinions in the comments.